Welcome to Lover Scholar, please subscribe. My stalker breaks into my house to cook and clean for me. He also deals with all my needs. When I confront him, he smirks and says, "You've always been mine. I just helped you realize it." There was a mug in my cabinet I didn't recognize. It wasn't mine. White porcelain, faint crack down the handle. The words "World's Okayest Professor," printed in crooked black letters. Cute, tacky, not something I'd ever buy. Not something anyone should think I'd want. I stared at it for a long time, the cabinet door wide open. I had the eerie, tickling sense that if I shut it, it would disappear. Like it was never there at all. A daydream, a heat hallucination, an Omega's paranoia. But it stayed. Solid. Real. Ceramic cool under my fingers when I reached out and touched it. I put it on the counter, washed it, then dried it and placed it neatly in the trash. I didn't want it near my things. I live alone. I have for nearly 5 years. I have 3 plates, 2 bowls, 1 fork, 1 knife. I keep no excess, no extras, no clutter. I don't like the idea of another person in my space, especially not when I'm vulnerable, especially not during these weeks. It's early spring, a dangerous time. The body stirs. Even with my suppressants and scent blockers, I still feel the heat ghosting beneath my skin. A raw hum like electricity in the walls. My nose has become too sensitive. I can smell too much. The walls, the soap, the dust on my books. And lately, something else. A scent I don't know. Not mine. Not alpha. Not quite. Something like cedarwood, honey, and a touch of laundry detergent that doesn't belong to me. I almost asked the laundromat about it last week. I dropped off my shirts and picked them up folded too neatly, smelling just slightly wrong. But I didn't say anything, because I already knew what they'd say. "We don't fold like that, sir." I stood in the kitchen, still staring at the trash can like the mug would crawl out. My hands were sweating inside my gloves. I tugged at the wrist seams until the leather snapped, then threw them in after the mug. Later that day, my lecture hall filled with warm voices, scraping chairs, the scent of cheap coffee and deodorant. I set my notes on the podium, ignoring the way my pulse throbbed in my neck. I shouldn't have skipped the second suppressant dose. But the side effects were brutal this week. Headaches, nosebleeds, nausea. I could manage. I had to. Professor Hart? I looked up. My vision blurred slightly before settling. Micah Lane stood at the bottom of the stairs, smiling like he always did, fresh scrubbed and friendly. Every inch the golden boy. Blonde hair, light sweater over a button-up, messenger bag slung across his shoulder. He held out a coffee. My name was scribbled on the cup. "I got an extra this morning," he said, sheepish. "Thought you might want it." I hesitated. He always sat in the front row, always took notes by hand, always stayed after to ask thoughtful questions. Too thoughtful. My fingers brushed the cup. Warm. A little too warm. "Thanks," I murmured, voice dry. "But I've already had some." He didn't look disappointed. He just stepped closer and set it carefully on the desk beside me. "In case you change your mind." He looked at me longer than he should have. And maybe, my eyes dropped to his collarbone. A moment too long. A mistake. Because something stirred in my stomach. Not hunger. Not fear. Something worse. The lecture went as it always did. Caravaggio's chiaroscuro. Scandal in technique. Blood in beauty. Shadows that devour. I spoke cleanly, clearly, but my mouth was dry. My eyes kept drifting to Micah's head, golden in the dim lecture hall light. He tilted it when I spoke, lips parted slightly, his expression open, too open, like he wasn't listening to the lecture at all, like he was listening only to me. After class, he lingered. Of course he did. "I liked what you said, about Baroque being theatrical. Emotional." He stepped closer again. A little too close. I took a measured breath and stepped back. "Micah," I said, gentler than I meant, "you should catch your next class." He looked surprised, then disappointed. Then he smiled again. "That's okay," he said brightly. "I'll walk with you." I gritted my teeth. My office was 3 floors up. He knew that, but I said nothing. And when we walked together, side by side, my stride stiff and deliberate. I noticed it again. That scent. Soft, warm, lingering, not mine. I looked down at my coat sleeve. Had I brushed against him? Or had he already brushed against me? When I got to my office, I unlocked the door and closed it quickly behind me, flicking the deadbolt out of reflex. My heart was pounding. There was a packet on my desk. Graded essays. Nothing out of place. Except there was another coffee mug, sitting beside the pile, identical to the one I threw out. World's okayest professor. I didn't scream. I just sat down, slowly, and folded my hands in my lap. Micah had smiled at me like a lover. He had touched my sleeve. He had looked into my eyes like he already knew what color they were before I opened them. And suddenly I remembered that old phrase. You always notice your stalker too late. But something else was worse. Beneath the dread, beneath the pounding heart and cold fingers, a flicker of something shameful twisted in my gut. Because my body was reacting. Not with fear, but heat. There was chicken soup in my refrigerator. I stood with the door open, cold air curling around my ankles, staring down at the glass container. It was sealed, neatly labeled. The kind of container that came from home kitchens, not stores. Nothing store-bought was this thoughtful. I hadn't made it. I hadn't ordered it. And the scent? Rosemary, thyme, a hint of lemon and ginger, floated up in soft, warm waves. It smelled like comfort. It also smelled like alpha. Not enough to make me panic. Just enough to make my throat tighten. Next to it were cut fruit containers stacked precisely. A slice of pie, the exact kind I liked. I never told anyone that. I hadn't eaten pie in over a year. I kept my diet plain. Predictable. This wasn't kindness. This was knowledge I hadn't shared. And worse, intimacy I hadn't invited. I shut the fridge softly, fingertips numb. My apartment was spotless. Cleaner than it should have been, considering I hadn't vacuumed in over a week. The laundry I'd left in the basket was gone. My bathroom towels were folded. My coffee table was cleared. Like someone had been here. Like someone was living here, quietly, around the edges of my life. And they didn't want me to know. Or maybe they did. Because next to the pie was a small folded note, wedged beneath a jar of honey. My name was written in blue ink. My full name, Elliot A. Hart. No one called me that. Not even in university records. I unfolded the paper with shaking hands. You always forget to eat. Let me take care of you. There was no name, no signature, just that ridiculous heart. That childish curl of affection in a world that felt increasingly wrong. I set the note down on the counter and backed away. My heat-suppressant doses sat in their tray on the windowsill. I'd missed last night's dose again. On purpose, maybe. I'd wanted clarity. I'd wanted to feel something real. But what I felt now was worse than confusion. It was seen, stripped bare. I didn't remember giving anyone a spare key. I had no roommates. I never had guests. The super wouldn't enter without permission. My building didn't have a doorman. I lived 5 floors up. The windows were locked. The hallway camera had been broken for months. I'd reported it once. No one fixed it. And still, someone had been inside. Not to harm me. Not yet. But to watch me. To feed me. To learn me like a song. I didn't eat the soup. I threw it out, then took the trash out myself, late at night, long after the hallway lights had dimmed and the tenants had gone to sleep. Every creak of the stairwell echoed too loudly in my ears. On the way back, I passed the laundry room on the 3rd floor. The door was cracked open. Someone was inside, humming, softly, sweetly, a tune I didn't recognize. I paused just for a second. Then I ran the rest of the way up the stairs. The next day in class, when I looked back, he was already walking away, calm, whistling, swinging his bag, as if he hadn't said anything at all. That night I locked the windows, barricaded the bedroom door with a chair, took 2 suppressant pills instead of 1. The taste of pie still lingered in my mouth, though I hadn't eaten any. I sat in bed, the lamp still on, staring at the gap under the door. And somewhere far beneath my skin, a low heat began to stir, kindling, An ache I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. It was sickening. It was wrong. And it was spreading. When I opened my closet that morning, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Subtle. Clean. Like cedar and cool rain. The second thing I noticed was that my clothes were in the wrong order. Not messy. Not ransacked. Reorganized. All the black shirts had been moved to the far end. My few blue ones, 2 button-downs I rarely wore, were hung front and center, ironed to perfection. There was a third one I didn't recognize at all. Deeper blue. Silky soft. Slim fit. My size exactly. I didn't buy it. I didn't want to touch it. But I did. The fabric glided over my skin like water. Cold. Then warm. It smelled like something I couldn't name. Something that curled low behind my tongue. I didn't know what to say. Accuse him? Of what? You smell like the clothes in my closet. You rearranged my fridge. You whispered to me while I was asleep. No, that wouldn't hold. I chose something smaller. Your behavior lately? I cleared my throat. It's been overly familiar. Micah tilted his head. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. His eyes flicked down to my chest, to my shirt. Not the blue one. But his smile widened anyway. That color doesn't suit you, he said soft. You look better in blue. My blood went cold. You. I saw you in it, he said lightly, as if that explained everything. The one in the back of your closet. You should wear it more often. My fingers curled around the edge of the desk. My nails bit into the wood. How do you? His gaze sharpened. Just a flash. A gleam of something darker beneath the calm surface. You left your window unlocked, he said gently. I hadn't. I knew I hadn't. Then he added, you looked so peaceful. I didn't want to wake you. A pause. My breath hitched. Micah leaned slightly forward. Not enough to touch. Just enough for me to feel the heat radiating off his body. And when you whispered, he murmured, I thought maybe you were dreaming about me. My face burned. A flush of heat, fury, shame. No, I said, voice hoarse. This is a boundary, Micah. He didn't move, but something in him changed. His smile turned softer, like silk sliding over a blade. I know, he said. I'm sorry. And then, he reached into his bag and pulled out something folded. Fabric. Blue. He placed it on the desk, careful and precise. I brought you this, he said. It matches your eyes. My hands stayed clenched in my lap. I didn't touch it. Couldn't. When he left, I didn't move for a long time. I was shaking, but not just from fear, because the scent he left behind, on the desk, on the shirt, in the air, made my mouth water. That night, I dreamed of him. Warm hands. A deep voice. Someone behind me, kissing the base of my neck, holding me still. You look better like this. My legs were weak in the dream, my thighs trembling, the sheets tangled between my knees. I woke up gasping, wet. I hadn't had a heat dream in years, and I hadn't said a word to anyone about my preferences. Not once. But Micah already knew. He always knew. I didn't find it right away. The day had been long, too many meetings stacked back to back. The faculty mixer had run late. I hadn't wanted to go, but attendance was expected. I was the youngest tenure track in the department. Being absent would be noticed, so I showed up, wore the gray button-up that made me look less fragile, said the right things, laughed when I needed to. I thought I did a good job pretending, until I turned and found him standing at the refreshments table, completely at ease among the senior staff. Micah, not a student anymore. I blinked, reassessed. A guest? A faculty family member? He wore a sleek black coat over a dark sweater. Hair casually mussed. Smile pleasant, disarming. Our eyes met across the room. He raised his glass to me just slightly. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But I felt it, like a hand on my throat. I cornered him 15 minutes later near the balcony doors. What are you doing here? I hissed. Enjoying the cheese, he said, calm as ever. Professor Nielsen invited me. I helped with some research last semester. I stared at him. You're a student. Graduate assistant now, he corrected. Why, Professor Hart? You don't look happy to see me. He leaned in far too close. Although, he added in a lower tone, you smell very happy. I flinched. There was no way he could know that. No way he could tell. My dose. I'd missed my afternoon suppressant. Because of the meeting. Because I'd been distracted. Disoriented. He knew. He could smell it. Micah's eyes softened. Like he'd just tasted something sweet. You poor thing, he whispered. You shouldn't go out unprotected like this. Back off, I growled, my body betraying me with a soft, involuntary tremor. You're crossing a line. I've already crossed it, he said. You're just catching up. Then he brushed past me. His fingers grazed my wrist for the barest second. Like, intentional. My skin burned long after he was gone. I found the blindfold later that night. I'd locked my apartment door. I always did now. Triple-checked it, turned the deadbolt twice. But when I pulled back the comforter to collapse into bed, there it was. Smooth black silk. Folded neatly. Tucked beneath my pillow. My hands shook as I picked it up. It wasn't one of mine. I didn't own anything like this. I didn't do things like this. But the fabric was warm, as if it had been held. As if someone had warmed it for me. There was a scent on it. That deep, soft cedar again. And something beneath it. Muskier. Alpha. I dropped it on the floor like it burned. Then, stupidly, I picked it up again. I brought it to my nose. Just once. The scent rushed through me so violently I had to sit down. My legs wouldn't hold. I wore it in bed. I don't know why. Not at first. Not until I was lying there. In the dark, heart thundering. Silk tied gently across my eyes. And then I felt him. Not his body. Not real. But the weight of him in my mind. The pressure of his presence. Fingers on my chest. A whisper against my lips. Let me make you feel good. The blanket bunched around my hips as I squirmed. I didn't touch myself. I didn't need to. His scent was on my skin. His voice in my head. The phantom heat between my legs throbbed. Quiet and insistent. My body was betraying me. Again. Always. And in the silence, I whispered something shameful. Please. Micah. My voice cracked. A chair scraped softly beside the bed. You shouldn't lock the door when you're like this, he said. His tone was scolding, but gentle. Sweet even. Like he was worried. Like he belonged here. I didn't know you were sick, he added, fingers grazing my temple, brushing sweat-soaked strands from my face. You didn't answer your emails. I hadn't checked them. I'd barely managed to strip off my socks before passing out. How did you? I tried to sit up, but my body wouldn't obey. You can't be here. You're not. My words fell apart under the weight of his gaze. He sat beside me, legs folded neatly, as if this were his bedroom. As if he had every right to be watching me unravel in my own bed. I made you soup, he said quietly. But you need rest first. I can feed you later. My head pounded. You broke in again. I didn't break anything, he said with a soft smile. You left the window unlocked. I know. I checked. He reached out and pressed his hand to my chest, right over the frantic thud of my heart. You were burning up, he murmured, tossing in your sheets, calling out. I hadn't said his name. I wouldn't, but shame surged in my gut all the same. I'm fine, I muttered. You should go. Micah cocked his head, eyes narrowing slightly. You're not fine, he said. And you asked for me. I didn't. He leaned in, not touching, just close. His breath skimmed my cheek. His scent surrounded me, made my thoughts hazy. I heard you, he whispered, last night, whispering in the dark. Wearing that little gift I left you, the blindfold, the one I told myself I'd thrown out. He brushed something cool and damp along my neck. Another cloth? His fingers. You wanted someone to take care of you, he murmured. And now I'm here. I could barely breathe. Part of me was sick with dread. But deeper, lower, there was another part. The one that warmed under his attention. that softened shamefully beneath the weight of his voice. That part was purring. Micah leaned down until his lips were nearly at my ear. "Let me help you feel better," he whispered. Not a question. A vow. And then he kissed my temple. Soft, almost reverent. His hand lingered on my chest, just over the rapid flutter of my pulse. "I'll stay until you sleep," he said, shifting to pull the blanket higher. "Don't worry. I won't do anything you don't want." But the way he said it made me shiver. Because what if I didn't know what I wanted anymore? Because what I feared most wasn't that he'd do something wrong. It was that if he kissed me again, I might kiss him back. It started with a dream. I was in the lecture hall, standing behind the podium, but the room was empty. Silent. Still. And then I wasn't standing anymore. I was on my knees. Breathless. Sweating. Waiting. Waiting for someone whose scent was already wrapped around me. I woke up with the sheets tangled between my thighs, skin flushed, lips parted, chest heaving like I'd run miles. Heat. But that wasn't possible. My cycle was regulated. Suppressants, injections, routine. I'd done everything right. I hadn't had a natural heat in years. But the aching weight in my belly told me otherwise. I staggered to the bathroom, nearly dropping the thermometer. My hands trembled as I forced it between my lips. Seconds passed. Beep. 102.3. I sank to the floor. The second wave hit harder. Slick already. Breathing unsteady. The inside of my mouth dry with want. I dragged myself to the kitchen for water. Palms braced against the counter. Bent nearly double. The glass slipped through my fingers and shattered. I didn't even flinch. Because he was already there. I hadn't heard him come in. But somehow Micah always knew. "Easy now," he murmured behind me, arms slipping around my waist. His voice was low, syrup slow. "You're burning up again." I should have fought him. I should have told him to leave. But when he touched me, the tension in my spine melted. My knees nearly buckled. He pressed his body against mine from behind, warm, solid, alpha. And every molecule in me lit up like a struck match. "I brought you something," he said softly, breath against the shell of my ear. Something to help. I felt the vial before I saw it. Cool glass against my lips. I shook my head weakly. "Suppressant, already?" "No," he whispered. "Not suppressant. Just water and scent stabilizers. Natural. Gentle." His thumb brushed along my throat. "You don't want to hide from this, do you?" I did, didn't I? But his scent was so strong now. And I was so weak. Micah guided me back to the couch, laid a blanket around my shoulders, and knelt in front of me like some twisted, reverent caretaker. He looked at me like I was something sacred. "You're so beautiful like this," he murmured, brushing sweat from my temple. "I wish you could see what I see." I didn't answer. Couldn't. The heat curled low and tight in my belly, shame making it worse. I should have been disgusted. Should have been terrified. But all I could think about was how good his hands felt on me. When the third wave crested, I was blindfolded again. I don't remember putting it on. But it was there, soft silk across my eyes. The world reduced to heat and breath and skin. I was trembling, slick with sweat, needy in a way I didn't want to name. And Micah's voice was all around me. "Just let go." His hands slid under the hem of my shirt. No pressure, no rush, just heat. He didn't ask. He never asked. He only ever offered. And waited for my body to answer first. I bit back a moan. "See?" he whispered, brushing his nose against my cheek. "You're not scared of me. You're scared of what I make you feel." He wasn't wrong. That was what terrified me most. That the longer I let him near, the more my body bent for him like it had always been his. He ghosted a kiss across my jaw. "You smell so ready, Professor." I hated the whimper that escaped my lips. He heard it. Of course he did. "Next time," he breathed, "I'll take care of everything." I woke up aching, not just from the heat that had dulled sometime in the early hours, giving way to exhaustion so heavy I couldn't tell where sleep ended and reality resumed. But something was wrong. The sheets were damp. My throat was dry. My shirt was gone. And my neck burned. Not with pain exactly, but with awareness. I stumbled to the mirror, still half blind from sleep. My hands shook as I tilted my head, pushed back sweat-damp hair, and saw it, faint, dusky, right over the scent gland. A bruise, dark and unmistakable. An alpha's mouth had been there. I gripped the edge of the sink. My legs threatened to give out. It wasn't possible. I would have remembered. I should have remembered. But all I could recall was heat and silk, a voice at my ear, a weight pressing me into the sheets, and the hum of something pleased curling inside me. My phone buzzed. A single message from a blocked number. You sleep so deeply when you're not pretending to be scared. I dropped it. The screen stayed lit on the tile, glowing like a threat. I spent the morning in the shower, scrubbing until my skin burned. But the scent didn't wash off. Not mine. Not neutral. Alpha. His. And that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how safe it made me feel. Like being wrapped in invisible arms. Like being seen. Possessed. Claimed. I wrapped a towel around myself and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the blindfold still twisted in the sheets. I should burn it. Instead, I touched the bruise again. My fingers trembled. That evening, Micah appeared outside my office. Like nothing had happened. He knocked, smiling as I opened the door halfway. "Professor," he said warmly, eyes flicking down, then up. "You look tired." "Micah." My voice came out too thin. "What do you want?" His smile didn't falter. "Just checking in. You weren't in class. I canceled lecture. I'm not feeling well." "Still? That's not like you." He tilted his head. "Didn't I take good care of you?" My blood turned to ice. I said nothing. Micah stepped closer. His fingers brushed my wrist, featherlight. His scent poured over me like a soft blanket, comforting, invasive. "You smell better today," he said softly. "Warmer, quieter." I backed away. "You did something," I said hoarsely. "I did exactly what you needed." His tone was gentle. "I gave you rest, and now you carry me." I froze. He leaned in, lips nearly at my ear. "It suits you," he whispered, "wearing me." And then he pulled back and walked away, whistling softly down the hall like he hadn't just unmade me. That night, I locked every door and window. But when I woke up in the dark, heart racing, the faintest outline of his body was still there beside mine. I didn't turn on the light. I didn't speak. I just breathed him in, and let myself fall asleep in the scent that no longer belonged just to him. It started with the closet. I opened it Monday morning, bleary-eyed and still sore in places I refused to name, and froze. My sweaters were rearranged, neatly, deliberately. The ones I never wore were moved to the front. And tucked between two of them was a folded navy shirt I'd never seen before. Soft, cashmere, new, alpha-scented. I dropped it like it burned me. At first, I told myself it was stress, hallucinations, lingering fever. I'd been off my suppressants too long, and now my instincts were weaving fantasies out of shadows. But then I found the key in the office drawer. Not my key. A copy. Next to it, inside the folder I kept locked, was a handwritten note. "It's not breaking in if I'm already inside you. No name.
No signature."
I almost screamed, but instead, I sat down in my chair and clutched the edge of the desk like a drowning man might cling to driftwood. I tried to work.
Lecture.
Smile. But the phantom brush of fingers followed me. Micah watched from his usual seat, third row, center, eyes too soft, too still. He took notes like any other student, smiled when I passed him, never broke the rules in public. But I could feel him on me, everywhere. Later that night, I checked the door 3 times. Locked, bolted, triple latched. But when I stepped into the shower, his scent was already in the steam. Not strong, not fresh, just the trace of him left on a towel. A toothbrush I didn't buy. A faint scratch along the mirror glass, like a fingertip had written something there, and wiped it away. My hand trembled as I turned off the water. I didn't see him, but I didn't need to. Micah didn't haunt like a ghost. He occupied. By Wednesday, I gave up fighting. I found myself standing in front of the closet again, reaching for that navy sweater. I told myself I was checking it, testing it. But when I pulled it on, the scent wrapped around me like arms. Micah's arms. Warm, steady, impossible to shake. I sat on the bed, fingers curled around the fabric at my sleeves, breathing deep, letting it lull me. Felt good. Too good. Like I'd stopped drowning. Not because I reached the surface, but because I sank willingly. That night, I dreamed I was standing in my kitchen, and Micah came up behind me. He didn't touch me, just whispered into the back of my neck. "You don't need to call for me. I'm always listening." I woke up gasping. Micah padded in from the kitchen barefoot, hair damp from a shower, still wearing my bathrobe. He was holding a steaming mug, and when he saw I was awake, his face lit up like morning sunlight. "Good. You're up," he said, sitting beside me without asking. "You were completely out. I didn't want to wake you." I couldn't speak. I couldn't look at him, but I didn't move away either. Micah set the mug on the nightstand. "I made you tea, with honey. Your throat was rough last night." He leaned in, fingers brushing my knee. I didn't go too far, did I? I should have said yes. Instead, I stared at the bruise at the base of his neck. Small, faint, mine. I didn't remember putting it there, but some part of me must have wanted to. "I should call the police," I said finally. "You won't." He was right. Micah pushed me gently back into the pillows. "I made you breakfast," he said, voice soft like static under the skin. "But we can eat later." His fingers brushed over the curve of my waist, then lower. But the bed beside me was still warm. I woke up warm. Too warm. "You need rest." Still a little loose. I tensed, heart hammering. But he only kissed my shoulder. His lips warm.
Familiar.
Like this was routine. Like he'd done it a dozen times already. I turned my head away. "This isn't real." "It is." He gathered the sheets over me like he was tucking in a child. Like I was something fragile, precious. "You let me in," he whispered, "and your body asked for more." I closed my eyes, and didn't stop him. Not when he kissed my collarbone. Not when his hands slid beneath the sheets again. Not even when I whispered, "Don't," and pulled him closer. I tried to leave, packed a bag, booked a hotel across town, wrote an email to the department chair about taking some time off. It should have felt like relief, freedom, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every shirt I touched smelled like him. The hallway looked longer than it ever had. And when I got to the door, I stood there for a full minute, hand on the knob, breath stuck in my chest. I knew I was being watched. I opened the door. Micah was there, sitting on the stairs, hoodie unzipped, legs relaxed, as if he'd been waiting for hours. Like he knew. He smiled. "Going somewhere?" I froze. "Move." "I don't think I will." His tone was light, but the edge underneath it was unmistakable. "Micah," my voice cracked. "You're scaring me." His smile didn't change, but something in his eyes did. "You don't get to be scared," he said softly. "Not after the things you let me do." My grip on the suitcase handle tightened. "I didn't let you." "Yes, you did." He stood. "I watched you sleep for weeks. I waited for you to say no. And you never did." He stepped forward, slow and deliberate. "You opened your door. You wore my scent. You kissed me back. You begged." I took a step back. Micah followed. "I marked you," he whispered. "And now you're mine. You feel it, don't you? That ache when I'm not close? That pull in your chest?" His fingers brushed my jaw. I flinched. "You want me," he said. "Even now." I did. And that terrified me more than anything. He backed me into the wall, hand pressed flat beside my head. "You're not leaving," he said, voice low. "Not ever." I shook my head. "This isn't love." "I know." Micah leaned in. His lips brushed my ear. "It's ownership." I sank to the floor. Not because he pushed me, because my knees gave out. Micah knelt with me, eyes soft again, like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just tried to run. He kissed the corner of my mouth. Gentle, final. "You smell like you belong here now," he murmured. "Don't ruin it with guilt." I didn't move, didn't argue, because some quiet, horrible part of me didn't want to. The room was quiet except for the steady rhythm of our breaths. I sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding like a war drum, palms slick against the silk sheets. Micah was in front of me, eyes warm but fierce, the air thick between us, charged and waiting. "You know why you're here," he said softly. I swallowed hard. Because I did. Because I had been here for weeks now, in this tangled place between fear and need, shame and longing. Because every mark on my skin, every stolen moment, every whispered command had led to this. "You're mine," Micah said. His voice was a promise, a warning, prayer. I looked down, unable to meet his gaze. "I'm yours," I whispered, voice raw and trembling. He smiled then, slow, triumphant, tender. "Say it." I lifted my eyes. "You own me," I breathed. A shiver ran down my spine as he closed the space between us, lips brushing my cheek, my throat, the hollow just beneath my ear. "You belong to me," he murmured. I nodded, heat flooding my cheeks, my body, and when his hands slid around me, strong and sure, pulling me closer, I stopped resisting. Because in his arms, no matter how much he claimed me, I finally felt home. Epilogue. No more running. The pill bottle sat on the edge of the bathroom counter, the label catching the morning light. I'd seen it 100 times before, but today something made me pick it up. Empty. Not just empty, missing pills. A handful gone. I traced my fingers over the gaps, heart stuttering. There was no note, no explanation. Just silence. Micah was in the other room, humming quietly. That easy, careless melody he always had when he thought no one was listening. I wanted to yell, to scream, to rip the walls down. But instead, I swallowed the knot in my throat and slid the bottle back down. Maybe it was wrong. Maybe it was controlling. But maybe it was also right. I couldn't imagine life without him now. Without the way he traced those slow circles on my skin, or how he whispered my name in the dark when no one else was around. The thought of having a child, a piece of him, tangled up inside me, no longer terrified me. It frightened me less than losing what we had. I stood there a moment longer, breathing in the quiet. When Micah stepped into the bathroom, he caught my eyes and smiled. No words passed between us. None were needed. Later, in the soft glow of the bedroom, his hands were everywhere, claiming, marking, promising. He bent me backward over the bed, lips trailing a fire down my neck, warm and insistent. "Mine," he murmured, voice thick with possession. I shivered, not because I was afraid, because I wanted it, because finally I stopped running, because finally I was home. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.